All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're cracking open one of the most famous stories you can think of, Daniel in the Lion's Den. And we're doing it to find a secret code, one that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time. You might think you know this story, but trust me, there's a whole other layer just waiting to be discovered. I mean, you know the basics, right? A good guy, some jealous rivals, a den of hungry lions, and a last-minute rescue. But what if I told you that story is just the cover? That underneath it all, there's a meticulously crafted message, a literary blueprint so precise it changes the meaning of everything. So, to find this code, we have to start where any good detective would, with the facts of the case. We've got to understand the trap before we can really get the message. The story kicks off in a royal court. Daniel's rivals come to King Darius with all this flattering, formal language, but it's all a show. See, Daniel is killing it at his job, and the king is about to promote him over everybody. And the other officials? Yeah, they absolutely hate that. So what do? They can't find anything wrong with his work. The guy's squeaky clean. So they decide to use his biggest strength against him, his faith. They trick the king into signing a law that can't be changed. For 30 days, nobody can pray to any god or man except King Darius. Well, Daniel, of course, goes right on praying to his god. His rivals catch him, and bam, the trap is sprung. And the king is devastated because even he can't change his own law. Okay, so we've got the setup. Now, this is where we start looking for clues. And the first hints of the code, they aren't in the big plot points, but in the specific words the author chooses to use. The writer of Daniel is playing a seriously sophisticated game here. According to our sources, they're repeating certain words a very specific number of times. And this isn't just sloppy writing or coincidence, it's a deliberate design, a hidden rhythm. So take the word seek. It shows up exactly 7 times. Now, in the ancient world, the number 7 is a big deal. It often signals something divine or complete, like the 7 days of creation. The author is basically putting a little flag on this word, telling us to pay attention. And then you've got the word find. It appears 8 times. Now, on their own, these are just fun facts, right? Kind of interesting trivia. But the real genius, the real code, is how the author weaves these 2 words together to create this beautiful irony. Get this. The accusers seek to find fault in Daniel. They're hunting for some kind of corruption. But what do they actually find? They find him seeking his God. The very act they're using to condemn him is the ultimate proof of his integrity. This wordplay just flips the whole situation on its head. It's brilliant. But that wordplay, that's just the first layer. It's just warming us up. Because if the author is being that intentional with single words, it kind of begs the question, right? What about the structure of the entire story? Well, it turns out that same incredible precision is built into the very bones of the chapter. And the answer is just mind-blowing. The entire story is built like a perfect mirror. Every single thing that happens in the first half is reflected in reverse in the second half. It's a literary structure called a chiasm, and it's a technique used to point you, like a giant flashing arrow, to the one thing that matters most. I mean, just look at this. The story starts with Darius getting his kingdom, and it ends with his reign secure. Daniel's promoted at the start, and he prospers at the end. The bad guys show up to accuse him, and later on they're destroyed. It all pivots, perfectly balanced on one single event, right in the heart of the story. And that central point is everything. It's the king, staying up all night, fasting, just completely distraught, while Daniel is sealed away in the den. Our source material points out that this is deliberately framed as a new Passover, a night of terrible danger, followed by an incredible rescue in the morning. This isn't just a clever trick. It is the key that unlocks the whole thing. Because this mirrored structure with this Passover-like event at its center, it's not a one-time thing. The author is showing us that Daniel's story is part of a much bigger pattern that you can see all through history, a pattern of death and resurrection. The parallels here are just undeniable. The story of Daniel is deliberately echoing the story of the Exodus. You've got a night of peril in a sealed place, a miraculous escape in the morning, The bad guys get totally wiped out, and a new law or decree is issued. The author is retelling the Exodus, but with Daniel at the center. There's a name for this literary technique, by the way. It's called typology, and it's basically the idea that history has patterns, that it rhymes. An earlier event or person acts as a type, like a blueprint or a foreshadowing, for a later, even bigger event. So Daniel's story isn't just looking backward to the Exodus, it's also pointing forward. That sealed den, that place of certain death from which Daniel emerges alive and unharmed, well, it's being presented as a type, a preview of another sealed tomb and an even greater resurrection. Okay, so you have to wonder, right? What was the point of all this? This incredible, complex literary structure, who was it for? Well, the first answer is, it was a direct lesson for the guy at the center of the storm, King Darius himself. For one, it teaches Darius that his unchangeable law isn't the highest law in the land, not even close. It shows him he has to trust a higher power to deal with the political lions in his own court. And by fasting and mourning all night, Darius is actually participating in Daniel's ordeal. He enters that symbolic death right alongside him, and then he shares in the resurrection when his kingdom is made secure. But the message doesn't just stop with King Darius. It becomes a kind of timeless test, posing the same fundamental choice to any leader who would come after him. And our source material draws a pretty stark line from King Darius to another famous ruler, Pontius Pilate. Think about it. Both are pressured by a mob to condemn an innocent man. Darius, even though he messes up, ultimately worries and fasts and hopes for divine rescue. He believes. Pilate, he caves to the pressure. He literally washes his hands of the whole thing. He does not believe. The story of Daniel sets the stage for a choice every leader has to make. So let's wrap this all up. The story of Daniel in the lion's den is so much more than a simple children's story about a good guy getting rescued. It's a message, an intricate code built into its very words and structure. It's a precisely engineered literary masterpiece. It's a story that is fundamentally about death and resurrection. It reveals a pattern of deliverance that the author believes is woven into the very fabric of history. And at its heart, it's a profound lesson on the eternal conflict between the laws of man and the law of God. Which, of course, leaves us with one final big question to chew on. If the author of Daniel was right, and history really does move in these repeating patterns of trial, judgment, and deliverance, what story are we in now?